Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Blueprint podcast. My name is Dr. Jake Latimer, and on the air today we have Darren Tompkins here from Vader Ray. Vader Ray, I'm sorry.
Vader Ray.
Vader Ray.
Yep.
Vader Ray. I butchered that one. My apologies. So basically what this is this is an entrepreneurial podcast where we're going to dive deep into the successes and some of the pitfalls that local entrepreneurs have faced along the way. Hopefully you as the viewer will be able to garner a little sliver of good information, be able to apply it in your life and your entrepreneurial journey. We are located right here in the Woodlands, Texas. And so that's just north of Houston. And so with all due respect, we're going to go ahead and jump right into the questions here. All right, Darren, you ready?
All good. Let's do this.
Can you share a bit about your background and what really inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. So I came to Houston via a job offer in oil and gas. I was a project manager and IT engineering support guy for a long time. And when you're in oil and gas or when you're in Houston, you get recruiting calls a lot, through LinkedIn and all that. And so many of them were just bad. And it just, over the years, it was like, man, there's probably a better way of doing this. And when it came to me getting into recruiting, I was like, I already have a blueprint of how not to do it.
Right.
So let's focus on what we can take away and do it better.
How would you differentiate, what you do versus someone and the inefficiencies they have to go through, like a online service like Career Builder or Monster or any of those platforms? How are you a little bit different than that?
Yeah, so we're very tailored to the client and the candidates, as you've seen firsthand.
Yeah.
It's no longer, and I'm saying old school. It used to be HR person would get the resume, they just pass it on to the hiring manager, not without even knowing what's actually there. Are they going to be a good cultural fit? Am I going to get along with Jake? Yeah. And if that doesn't happen, it's never going to work. And aligning things like what the salary expectations and all that are. When you deal with a recruiter, you're getting somebody who is on the client side, somebody who's a subject matter expert and getting the right people there. But you're also representing, the candidates like Bree here, of is it going to be a good fit for her? And then when it does come together, I mean, it's great,
I think that's great. I think to just kind of elaborate on that a little bit more, vision. You've got to understand who you're working for and what their vision is, and y'all's visions must align. The
cultures must align. We'll probably say this later. Nowadays, people leave for two reasons. They leave for either better pay or better culture. Yeah. Those are the top two.
So, what was the defining moment in your life when you decided to launch your business? Like what was that moment when you said, aha, I've got to do this?
Yeah. So I was working at W2 as a recruiter for an international company. And, it was great that the hours were good. I really liked the team. But with an entrepreneurial mindset, it's like I could probably get some of my time back and do these things a little bit better if I had my own time to do it. And so I had a buddy of mine who, as a kind of a side hustle, said, can you help us out? It wasn't a full-time thing where I would have to take focus away from the other job. Mm-hmm. But very quickly, I'm talking within 2 months, it's like, man, I think we've got a nest egg pot here that we could work off of to go independent and create Vader Ray Recruiting. And that's exactly what happened. And so we were well funded and had a process down to go off and do our own.
Nice. So Vader Ray, tell me how that name came into fruition.
So we're a very pop culture family. I thank my dad for that. Star Wars was something that we bonded with as kids, and we've grown up with it. My daughter's names are Izzy Ray Tompkins and Josie Vader Tompkins.
Love it.
And it was my wife's idea of combining those names into this because it's instantly recognizable on the Vader side.
Absolutely.
And it's a conversation starter. And with business development, that's what it's all about.
I love
Look at this cool logo. Tell me about this. And that's how you get into discussion.
I love it. I love it. How did you identify a specific niche or a market opportunity that your business decided to focus in?
Yeah. So coming from an oil and gas background, and that first side hustle was in the industrial space. Okay. And coming from an engineering background, even though I'm in engineering support, I knew how to talk the lingo of a very specific section of the industry of America that not a lot of people can. I can't talk tax very well, but I'm learning it. From previous clients and all that. So when it comes to doing things like when I have to interact with engineering managers and procurement people and all that type of stuff, they want to know about codes for infrastructure and all that. If I don't have it, I have an immediate circle that I can go to and say, what do you think about this? How would you word that? And it's been a big help in continuing that. So oil and gas and all the service sectors that are a piece of that, which also includes taxation and finance, is how we've made our bones here.
Gotcha. What would you say was the biggest challenge you faced when starting your business, and how did you overcome them?
Building trust with clients, because as you start out at the very beginning, anybody can go out and create a web page, and say, hey, I'm an expert at this. And I see it all the time. Everybody wants to be an expert in their field, whether they have the experience and the longevity for that or not. Referrals are absolutely key in this business, because it is a business case, a business trust, because you're entrusting us to provide you with a future for employees and all that type of thing. If you don't have those connections, you're just going to be cold calling, and maybe once in a while you'll get something. Somebody might be interested, but it's making your case forward. I'm an industry leader in this now. Whereas before you just didn't know it because I had multi-levels of leadership.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm garnering from that is you had to remove obscurity in a sense, huh?
Very much so. Because, certain companies go out there and they preach about, we're leaders in this sector, this area, right? But you don't know who those people are because they only focus on the CEO, and they don't push their team ahead to show that they're the best.
When you were starting out in business, did you notice that you had difficulty gaining or garnering traction with, your current peers, your friends, things like that, for whatever reason, right? Like they needed a recruiter, right? And they would kind of bypass you at first, and then maybe over time, then they gain confidence in you. And now you're their go-to guy. Did you notice that on the front end at first?
A bit, right? So I was part of some masterminds before I started this company, because I do have another company, Headlock Hot Sauce, that we were already, trucking with. And these are people that were like, they don't push you out of your W-2, because if you're happy in your W-2, stay there. If you're making great money and benefits and you've got a retirement package, all that, don't rush out. But if your mindset is, I'm going to get out of a W-2, start a company, even if it's not in the same industry that you're already in, they're going to help you along the way with motivation and advice and guidance and being advisors and all that. That was the biggest help in making that jump. And they were the people that were our very first referral partners.
Gotcha.
It's like you say, the circle of influence that you have around you, those 5 to 10 people, if it's strong, they're going to help you out.
Yeah. You and I were talking about that before you hopped on the podcast. And what we were illustrating was, I'm a big proponent on you're the 5 people you hang out with the most. So choose those 5 people wisely. Okay. And so if you're hanging out with the wrong group, it's your career is just not going to project. Did you have a specific strategy or maybe even a blueprint when building your business from scratch? Or is that one of those things you just kind of had to work out and figure out along the way, or what you thought your theory was maybe wasn't reality and you had to pivot multiple times?
Yeah, it's I knew the sectors of industry that we wanted to focus on because, again, we have experience in that. And it was prioritizing quality over quantity. We've turned down clients all the time. Maybe they're in a sector that I'm not confident in. They're in a geographic location where it's like, I don't think this is going to work. Or they're in an industry where it's like always high turnover or that kind of thing, because we don't want that. It just doesn't work out for anybody. Understanding what the client's needs are key, which is why we do this big lead interview with the owners and leadership before we even start to talk about process.
Yeah.
Recruiting is a process. We already had the process down, my wife and I, and the part-timers I was working with at the time, to know that this works if they stick to the process. There are plenty of clients that we fired essentially because they won't stick to the process, and we lose candidates. They lose interest. It just, the communication isn't there.
Yeah. Stick
the process and you're going to have successes,
I think one of the things that I took out of that, and a lot of people don't understand this, especially when they start out in business, is, you always are fearful that your client's going to fire you, but you have the ability to fire them as well, right? If it's not a right fit, it's not a right fit.
Yes.
And you know, I know over time and through the maturation process of entrepreneurship, you have to get comfortable in your own skin to say, you know what, this is not worth it.
I'm in the thick of it right now. I literally, before I came here, I typed up an email. I haven't sent it to a client of we had a great relationship. We were making good money with them last year, good profit, but the chaos is just, you as an entrepreneur, it's like, is this going to last? And it's become too stressful for my personal life and for my wife's life and everything else to just continue it on. So that's my job this afternoon, is to send it out and let them know.
I get it. How did you secure funding to get started at first?
You know, I bootstrapped it. Having that side hustle helped. And we as entrepreneurs, we have these great sayings that we come up with, and side hustles become main hustles if you have the tenacity and sometimes the luck, but if you have the vision to it, that helped. And then getting into business very quickly, having the referrals of people that were ready to go. Once I told the W-2, this is gonna be my last day, and they didn't fight it or anything. So I'm like, okay, I guess we got the green light. And then, of course, asking my wife, when can I resign and then go with this full time? She gave me the date, and bam, we're off.
Yeah, I think it's really critical. I know that when I started in my profession, everybody starts it as a side hustle. Most people do, at least, right? But you've got to be honest with yourself. When you get to the point where you're burning the candle at all these different ends, right? And even though you might not have enough revenue or enough income in your side business to substantiate your cost of living, you have to have the wherewithal, the fortitude to push through, to be able to understand, okay, now's that time. It's now or never, right? And so, you have to, just really push through and figure it out, because you can't stay a side hustle forever. It doesn't work.
That's another saying, which I've done masterminds on. Set the date, don't deviate. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, set the date you're going to resign, and do not push it. Otherwise, you'll just be pushing it forever.
Yep, absolutely. How important was hiring the right team been to your success, and what qualities do you look for when finding those right members? Yeah,
it's the team for me is, hey, Steph, do you want to incorporate? Because I, as a visionary leader and big thinker, the joke is I come up with these ideas and then she has to play cleanup, because she's our CFO. She does a lot of our accounting. She is kind of like our legal analyst every now and again, and she takes on a lot more than what I'd like to do. We're trying to offload some of that, right? Having her, and then have a sounding board of what do you think we should do, using the experience that we had already had with dealing with other recruiters and business development people and researchers and all that. Knowing the recruiting system and the types of people, using personality profiles like Predictive Index, we're a big champion of that, and knowing what personalities fit into different buckets in roles in our company. Our recruiter, Catherine, we had a funny situation that happened a couple of months ago where a client, for whatever reason, couldn't get a hold of me, so we called her. Nobody ever calls her. She is a nose to the grind, very steady, precision worker. And when clients call her, she panics. She doesn't know what to do. And the client didn't know any different. So he's like, what is up with her? I'm like, please don't call her again, because you're messing up a process.
Understood. Yeah.
But knowing those, but man, she does it, and she's great at it. So I don't want to, rattle her ever. And knowing that what she's good at, knowing what our SDRs are good at, knowing what I'm good at, that's what sets you apart.
To hit on that, and I think we've talked before, I'm a big sports enthusiast, okay? And so anytime you're going to build something special, it's always a team approach, guys, right? Like myself, Darren here, we might be the running back, the quarterback, the star per se in that regard, but we can't do what we do without everyone else, right? Unless you have the offensive lineman, unless you have the defense putting forth the pressure on the opposing quarterback, the DBs, the receivers. You have all these various special teams. You have all these different roles, and if you're going to do something special, it is key to have the right team members. We were talking just moments ago that there's this misconception that once you build a business to a certain level per se, you don't work nearly as hard and I told you that was just not true, right? You work differently, right? And we talked about delegating. And while delegating is very important, you have to be able to delegate to the right individuals, and that comes into play having the right team members. And someone like Darren right here, who has a recruiting company that can find those right team members for you.
Yeah, and in the modern day, right, people always equate media success as, man, you must be financially successful. Example of that in is last year, Headlock Hot Sauce, we made national news. Fox News, Fox International, Fox and Friends all heard about us, and we made national news. Well, man, Headlock must be worth tens of millions of dollars. No, we are a small company that just lucked out. And but it did provide some traction, but it's in the entrepreneurial mindset, we're here doing this, we're on the ground every day. You got to know the difference.
Yeah. So those are very good points. Let me pivot on something real quick. We were talking about finding the right team members, right? Can you share a time when a key member of your organization made a significant impact on your business, what they actually did, or one of those times you're like, thankfully you stepped up to the plate because, you were the key winner here in this transaction?
Yeah. I'm going to use my wife as an example. We have a client where the HR director, for whatever reason, even though I'm the one who did the outreach, got the contract signed, he just doesn't want to talk to me. There's something just not gelling there. So she's had to take the lead as client services to make all the BD work continue on, right? Sometimes people just don't gel. I've had people on my podcast, it's like, man, there's a fight to get through this thing, and the others where it's just so natural and easy, right? We all want it to be easy.
Yeah.
But with Steph, it was like, and she's very different from me. She's very outgoing and bubbly and cracking jokes all the time. Me, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And knowing that, and when she was able to go out and help push this along and grow our business, even though it wasn't really her job, because she has a W-2 and she's helping me run these other two companies, third company coming up, and just showing the gratitude as not only as a business partner, but as a spouse and family member and all that.
It's key.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to knowing their strengths.
Yeah.
And how you can.
Absolutely. How do you stay motivated? How do you keep your team members motivated? Especially when you're going through tough times. Yeah.
January is always tough, right? Because sometimes budgets aren't set. In a lot of industries, it's slow, and internally I have to remember that, I have to remember January is up where we're going to try and get what we can, because by March, April, May, things tend to blow up, we're coming off an election year. It's a lot of uncertainty. We stay motivated by doing things like masterminds and talking to clients and reaffirming our position to helping them out. Having good family life helps. Having good hobbies helps when you can get them in. Staying motivated, because we are in a commission-based business, which is letting my team members know there is big money in this. And you've seen it, because we pay bonuses, we pay Christmas bonuses. We'll throw money at them when things are down just to show them we value you. It's not always about we have to hit a certain profit margin and then we have to celebrate our employees. You should be doing that every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know you have a family atmosphere here, which doing things like the health insurance and all that, it's the benefits like that are going to want to keep them here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What roles would you say professional services like accountants, lawyers, various different consultants, as from an indirect approach, right, have been key and vital to your success in your business? Accounting skills.
I'm a terrible accountant. And again, I'm going back to Stephanie on that. And we have a great tax guy that I've had for 20 years now, right? And really using, and a lot of times using clients as sounding boards for the types of things. I can call you up and be like, man, what do you think about this situation? You know, and having people that in their personal network, we talked before this about, being part of these mastermind groups with other entrepreneurs that can literally become your advisory board. And that has been a huge, even going back to when I was in a W-2, them pushing me leave because these are the things that you're good at and you would translate into your new, entrepreneur lifestyle. Yeah, we can go off on a tangent on that, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think people would be surprised, who they have in their back pocket that they could reach out to as like a mentor or someone in another field, but still from a like-minded perspective, right, is either already there or on their way there, right, that you can use as a sounding board. And believe it or not, people that are successful, I mean, you love to help.
Yeah, I always say give a lot, ask a little.
Yeah.
And even if it's somebody that's in your industry, fellow recruiters or fellow tax people, somebody's going to have an answer for you or know somebody that can help out. That's not going to be direct competition or something like that, you know?
Yep. Let me ask you this. When and where do you know it's time to seek outside expertise? What's one of those things that you go, okay, I think now I should ask?
If I can't get the answer from like an AI, or if I just immediately look at something, I don't know what this is. Like there's a guy somewhere or a girl, and it's just, and it's also a little bit of a pride thing because we all want to be experts in our industry, but sometimes a curveball comes in. It's like, man, I just don't know. Let me go find somebody that does.
Yeah.
You know, and
I think you got to kind of teeter-totter on that, right? Because you don't want to lose your critical skills and thinking, right? And there's something to gain to be able to push through a difficult time and try to understand and get through something. But obviously, if you get to the point, and I always think that if I'm just wasting time now and I'm spinning my wheels, and it's not just that you're spinning your wheels, even though time is our most valuable commodity, it is the energy that you are exhausting, right? So, you know, you've got to be able to identify that this is not a good usage of your time, and now it might be time to outsource. And so I think when you're trying to build something special as an entrepreneur, when you have the ability to focus on driving top-line revenue and growing that organization, you need to outsource as much as possible, especially when it comes to ancillary services. That way you outsource those to, you know, experts in those fields, and it frees up your time, like we just said, their most valuable commodity, to allow you to focus and realign your interest into growing your organization.
I don't like cold calling. I just don't.
I don't either.
It doesn't really ever work, but it needs to be some small part of your business, right? So Steph was like, well, why don't you do it? Because I suck at it. Yeah. So well, let me go hire somebody to do it and get some of that time back. Based on, you know, the matrix of the company. And again, it's knowing what you're better at and focus on that rather than what you're not good at.
Yeah. And to an extent, I mean, every business, you have sales, right? That's what drives top line revenue. And no one wants to be the used car salesman. No offense if you're a used car salesman, but no one wants to be that individual, right? And I always say this, I think I'm a decent salesman. I wouldn't give myself a lot of accolades on that, but I think where it resonates with a lot of people is just that authenticity.
Very much.
I never go into it as if it's a hard sell that I'm trying to push something on someone. I think when you take the approach, at least from my perspective, as you act as a fiduciary and you're just educating somebody on opportunities, then you can kind of gauge where, you know, what their comfort zone is, and see if you can understand, you know, where their pain points are and if you can help them along the way. But it takes not just you to be able to sell that, but it has to take them being receptive. And so I know myself, and most listeners out there will probably agree, that when I start dealing with someone who's a hard salesman, I turn off immediately.
I do too. I don't like the pushiness and all that. Yeah. Because you're going to get it no matter what through referrals. We're nice people here, Vader, right? You've seen it. Bria's seen it. That's what we want to instill on people. Otherwise, you're just going to be angrily cold calling people, trying to...
Well, and you're like me, Darren. I mean, you can't sell something that you don't feel comfortable selling.
Yeah.
You know? And if you don't believe in what you're selling, you shouldn't be selling it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, while none of us are perfect people, right? You've got to be honest with yourself and say, do you like what you see in the mirror? Right? Yeah. And for me, I know that I could never push a service on somebody that A, I didn't believe in. B, did I not think it would benefit the client, right? That there was true value in that. And if the answer to that is no, it's just to make money. I mean, I had a guy come in yesterday and you know, we were quoting him on some work, and the reality was he was a client of ours years ago. He left us because he thought there was a new opportunity somewhere else. He completely got burned. He came back and, you know, he said, well, tell me what I need to do. There's back tax returns that need to be filed and yada this and yada that. And I said, look, man, we can file this one here as a final. We can close up your company because they were kind of dormant companies and a lot of inactivity. And I said, look, if I was not an honest person, I could have said, hey, let's just file all these returns and I could have made the money off of you. but I can't live with myself doing stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? And he said, and he looked at me and he said, that's why I'm back here, man. I realize that. You're not going to lie. You're not going to bullshit me. And I think when you find people that have that type of integrity, I know you have that type of integrity. That's why we deal with you specifically. You don't go shop around. You stay with those individuals, because if you're looking to cut a dollar here or there on spending and you're chasing a moving target, you're never going to reach that success, that destiny of success that you're seeking out.
We don't do anything short term. Every client we have, we anticipate you'll be here 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And you have to be that way.
It's the end game. It's not about that short-term money, that front-end money. It never works out that way. It's the relationships that you're building.
Exactly.
At what point did you know it was time to scale your business, and how did you approach that growth?
Yeah. So in recruiting, a recruiter only has so much time in their day. We talked about time management earlier, and it becomes on how many jobs do we have and what do we think a person can reasonably service and not lose that relationship building piece. Otherwise you end up in a sweatshop where you're just 2 minutes of conversation. Again, you're handing a resume over to a hiring manager.
Yep.
We are agile and can scale, and with me doing some backup here based on how much work is coming in. Last summer, we were booming. We had oil and gas clients and everything else because they were all hiring. Again, later on in the year, they typically shut down for turnarounds and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, okay, we scale up. We hire independent contractors and stuff to back up our permanent team. And then when it kind of peters out, okay, we need to do some cost savings, focus on the building for next year. And then we can kind of smooth it out to make sure that the full-timers are gainfully employed full time. And again, doing things like bonuses and, doing motivational speaking and all that kind of stuff. So when it does get busy again, they know their comfort zone, and then they can come to you like, I need more help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of employees, they don't want to do that because they don't want to feel like they're weak. And
of course. What strategies would you say have been the most effective for expanding your customer base or your market reach?
Yeah, we've talked about it. It's referrals. It's always referrals. I hosted a podcast on Tuesday where she has a recruiting business, life coaching business. She and I are very similar, where it's all referrals, and because once somebody says, "Hey, he's a good dude," they're always going to think you're a good dude, unless you do something to screw it up.
Yeah, I remember years ago, I had a fellow colleague, and at the bottom of his signature, it used to say, the best compliment you can pay me is a referral. And I remember when it first came through, I was like, and I think I was just real wet behind the ears back then, right? Because this was probably 15, 16 years ago. And I was thinking to myself, I said, how cheesy is that, though, at first?
You were a teenager back then, right?
That's a good one. So I was like, man, I think he's trying to, I thought he was being a little pushy, right? But then, through the maturation process, he had a lot more experience than I did. And so I saw, and I still don't know if I would put that in my signature, but once you develop a good relationship with somebody, I don't think it's outside the norm to ask them for a referral. Mm-hmm. Once you build a quality relationship with them.
I'm going to ask you about that when we get off this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, because when you find like-minded individuals and people doing good work, you want to put them in the right hands.
Absolutely.
And so I would just say, to double down on everything Darren was saying, referrals are the most important thing. But realize that 6 degrees of separation, the flip side of that occurs as well. So this person knows this person knows this person. And the moment you make a mistake, people are real quick to kind of run that little mouth a little bit, and then it can just really tank your business.
Society we are in, man, a bunch of haters.
Yeah,
and
it is. Can you share a milestone or breakthrough moment that changed the trajectory of your business?
Yeah. So this goes back to what we were saying about scaling work. We got a contract with an oil and gas client where it's not like, hey man, we got 3 roles. No, it's like we've got 10 roles, and it's like, okay. You build your portfolios as a startup. You could on your successes, right? Not your failures. And now all of a sudden we've got, because when you place people in good companies and they're happy and all that, they become your best referral partners, not just the owners, but the people that are there. Yeah. The candidates. And once we started really rolling, there's a lot of work. We're conversing. They point us to the hiring manager, because it's not always that we get to gain a report with the hiring manager. It could be the HR director. That's all you're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
And then, but when a company opens up, okay, they're doing great work. You need to meet these people within our company, and then you build a business around that. Whether it's in finance, whether it's in engineering, or whatever. And then it was like, okay, there's a whole new bunch of proponents within this that we can lean on to build the biz, because not everybody stays, and when those candidates leave, they're going to remember what a good guy you were and how much you helped them. And they're in a new role, and now they're like, hey, can you come help us out? That's when it was like, okay, we're doing referrals. I only want to do so much work, but now here's all this work, and we can really see a bigger picture of where we could be going.
Yep. What would you say was one of the toughest decisions that you have had to make as being an entrepreneur?
Nothing lasts forever. That's the oldest, one of the oldest things that are instilled upon us by our grandparents. We've had clients where it's like, man, this is going to be awesome. They're throwing this at us, they're throwing that. And then they do a hiring freeze or a change of leadership. It's like, oh man. Because again, leaders come in, but they already know somebody from a previous job that they want to lean on, and all of a sudden you're out. And it's just the way of life.
Yeah. And to double down on that a little bit. And what I was talking about the other person is, I think when you're just always put the client first and always do the right thing, even those that decide to go another different direction, when you have the right integrity and character, those people will eventually come back to you. Everything comes full circle.
Whether it's next week or next year, you'll reconnect at some point.
Absolutely. How do you handle setbacks and failures while trying to stay focused on your goals?
Yeah. Failures bring lessons, and recruiting is a numbers game. And we're dealing with the most volatile commodity of all time, which is people. It's not the job, it's the people that we, whether we're building relationships with leaders or candidates or anybody in between. Man, people change their minds, they change workflows, they change the process that they want to do internally. We stick to process because we know we're successful. We have case studies that show we're successful.
Yeah.
But the challenge and setbacks are varied based on decisions of other folks, not what we're doing, and when we deal with those, we just create a lessons learned. How do we do it differently, and instill that on our employees and partners?
Yeah. I mean, look, I always say this, that I make mistakes every day. I have failures every single day. Some are very small. Some are quite monumental.
Some we don't tell other people about.
And to get back on the sports analogy, I use Tom Brady as an example, right? Like, he's arguably the greatest quarterback ever. Thrown a lot of touchdowns. He's thrown a lot of interceptions too out there too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think, what did he go to 10 Super Bowls? He won 7, so he lost 3. So, even the greats, you're going to have failures. It's how you respond to those failures and what you learn from that and how you recover is what makes you, ultimately determines the trajectory you continue to go down, what pathway you go.
When you talk to like motivational speakers and all that, there's a certain sector of them that they just don't talk about their failures. They're building their brand, and they'd say, oh, this is why I'm awesome, and my life could be your life, and all that stuff. Yeah. And it's like, once you get to a certain, I don't know if it's a certain age or wisdom, it's like, you're leaving out a lot.
Absolutely. And you got your good days, you got the bad days. You might have a bad week. You might have a bad month,
Could have a bad year. That happens a lot.
It happens. It certainly does. But when you have that wherewithal, that fortitude to pull yourself up out of it, that's how you identify someone who's going to be great versus someone who's going to be average.
Truly,
how you respond. Mm-hmm. What would you say the most significant lesson you learned on your entrepreneur journey?
It's going to go back to nothing lasts forever. And then be prepared when that piece of your life ends, having a plan or knowledge of where you're going to take it to next, and not dwelling on that, because it's like you said, you could have, and any business can have, 1,000 5-star reviews. Yeah. And then one jackass is going to leave you a 1-star review. And for me, I dwell on that so hard. It takes me a long time to get over it. Yeah. And even though we have these other successes, it's like, what could we have done in a lot of cases, you couldn't have done anything better. It's just people are jerks sometimes.
Yeah, to hit on that, and like I told you, I'm a big sports enthusiast. I mean, I played high school, college, and semi-pro baseball, and I would tell you that, as a pitcher, I had to learn to compartmentalize my mistakes. So if I walked a batter, I hit a batter, right? I can't keep worrying about that batter on first base. I mean, obviously he might steal second if I don't keep him on, but I have to focus what's in front of me. And so when you make a mistake, someone gives you a bad review, you've got to learn how to recover from that. You can't dwell on that too long, right? You got to learn to pivot, compartmentalize, learn from that, and move on.
There's a great book called Gap in the Game. I don't know if you've ever read it.
No.
It talks about getting over that type of stuff. And one of the examples in the book is I believe it's high school softball girls coach, and they were nobody, and then he turned the team around. They went to, I think, like state championship, and they lost. Right. And so the girls are all devastated, and he gets on the bus and says, you got 5 minutes to cry, whine, get it out. And then we're talking about next season, and then it's over. And that was a great passage where I'm like, I got to get in that same mindset.
Yeah. You have to. How do you balance your personal life, your family, and running a business?
It's tough, man, especially when your wife is involved. We try to leave everything, the major finance and all that stuff done, because I have to go get the kids, daycare and school. And that's the end of it. Right. We have what we call Wine Wednesdays, where that is our time. Once the kids are in bed, we're take an hour, open a bottle of red, and then we're going to talk openly, not only about the business, right, but how's your life this week? What's going on? Because you don't always know, and then it keeps things build in pressure. Like, I really don't want to tell her about this thing, but then that gets, when you keep it in, it just builds and builds and builds, and it's never a good ending, right?
It's tough as entrepreneurs. We talked about this, right? Like, someone might be a high functioning employee, and it's no knock on it, the craft per se, and they could be like a supercomputer that's going, work 50, 60 hours that week, and high performance. Darren and myself and other entrepreneurs, I know they'll relate to what I'm about to say, is we're oftentimes like a server. We're not always functioning at a high rate, but we never shut off, right? So when you go into hibernate mode, when you go into sleep mode, that's our time to kind of re-energize our batteries. And that's tough, man. That's tough, I tell you. But if you don't do those things, you'll burn yourself out.
Yeah. And then having good hobbies and good getting to the gym, that kind of stuff. That's what gets me to a point of, okay, gym time is when I can focus on, okay, what do I need to do while listening to the metal, and then you keep them motivated. Okay, what do we need to do? What's the next step? What do we need to close out? I mean, whether it's business or in your personal life, and one of the things we did recently, which is and this is another life thing. I learned this from a physicist years ago. As you get older, you perceive time differently. An hour to a 6-year-old is an eternity. And now, it's 3 months to guys like us. It's like, we're already past it, over the holidays, Steph's like, hey, I booked our spring break trip. I'm like, what? That's 3 months? Oh my God. It's like here, it's like you blink and you're going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about my daughter, right? And she's 16 and a half now. And I can tell you that I remember when she was just a little infant, she would lay on my arm right there. Right. And, I'm 2.5 years away from her graduating high school and on to college. And time goes by so fast. So you got to make sure you take time for your loved ones. I know me and my wife, a lot of times we'll go out Tuesday nights and be like a little date night for us. And we've
once a week, do it.
Yep. You got to carve it out. And sometimes we miss that because I'm working 7 days a week and I get busy. She gets busy. But if you don't take that time out, you get lost in everything.
Another book is called 18 Summers, and it talks about that's all you got, 18 summers with their kids, and then they're going to be moving on and make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. What role would you say that faith, values, and personal beliefs played in your decision-making process or currently do?
Yeah, we talked about that, a lot about integrity and honesty, maintaining great relationships, whether that's in like a personal belief, hard trust, whether it's with the clients or with your team. I don't want to say creating a family atmosphere because I think that's thrown out a lot. I know you say that here, but you want people to stick around you, right? Whether that's in personal or business. So creating an atmosphere that is genuinely you, as we discussed earlier, that creates a battle flag that people want to rally around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. It was years ago. I was asked to be on this radio station and it was a local radio station right here in the Woodlands. And the guy had asked me when I was on the air, he says, Jake, what would you say has made your firm more successful or makes your firm different than other firms out there? And I said, I just kind of like sat back for a second. I started thinking and I said, honestly, man, compliance is compliance. Advising is advising. I said, care. We just care more. And I think when you care more, you spend more time. You actually, excuse my French, don't get offended. You give a shit more about the client,
I forgot to ask if this is an explicit, like little kids watch this podcast.
No, they can. We're not going to get too foul, but you actually. But I do believe in using sometimes strong language to get a point across to somebody.
That happens every day.
And I don't believe in ad-libbing or pretending to be somebody that you're not. Giving a shit, what the client really has, caring about, how the decision-making you're doing in your firm pertains and relates to your employees. They feel that, right? So if they, it's always at this office, it's an open door policy. I like to know who they are as people first and foremost. That's one of the first interviews we ask right off the bat is, okay, great. I got your resume in front of me. Tell me about you, the person, right? Because cultures have to mesh, both with your employees as well as your customer base. And so if it doesn't matter what someone's it does matter what someone's qualifications are if they can do the job, but if they're difficult to relate to and you can't connect, it's not going to work.
I mean, you've seen that with us. We ask the hard-nosed questions, technical questions up, because by the time they get to you, hey, and again, it's part of being a great business partner advisor. Yeah, we think Bree is great, man. And then you can come in like, okay, she met all the requirements, and now let's get to know her and make sure it's a good fit.
That's right. Who or what keeps you motivated during challenging times?
Just the vision, really. And then again, we go back to having Steph as a partner to push me when we need to.
Yeah.
She works for a major natural gas client. She's in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So Monday and Friday we get to work together at home on the other projects. And understanding again the ebb and flow of people and recruiting, of knowing we're going to have big months and other months, it's like something going to happen.
Yeah.
On the business development side, because we always have candidates coming in and out of the system, and then kind of having a vision of what an end game. All entrepreneurs. Somebody, if you look for investors, they're going to say, "Well, what's your exit strategy?"
Yeah,
I don't have one yet because we're not that far into it, but doing long-term planning like that kind of gives you a vision of we want to be valued at X at some point in time. Then maybe we'll merge or sell off. Just depends. We don't have any timeline for that, but keep it in mind that it could be there.
Yeah. Those are good. I would say for me, because the first thing I always do is I do my prayer every morning is putting God first, because I want to make sure that when I arrived here on earth versus when I leave, that I made this place a better place. Right. Second is my family. So for me, those two things keep me motivated, God and my family, always making sure I'm doing right by both. And it really kind of aligns my vision and making sure that I'm doing the right things all the time.
I was talking to one of our recruiters. She's a virtual assistant in the Philippines, and they just celebrated her grandmother's 80th birthday. Her great grandmother died last year at 110.
Unbelievable.
And I was like, whoa, okay. And I'm like, so tell me more about your family then.
Yeah.
She's got 100 cousins, 12 siblings. I'm like, whoa, man. You talk about like the things that motivate you and the things that you have to do in life. It's vastly different from what I've got going on here.
Absolutely. I'm assuming there's a lot of fish eating there, a lot of omega-3s and stuff like that to be able to live. So. 110. That's amazing. What advice would you give to someone looking to start a business in your industry?
There's no fast solutions.
Yeah.
If you're going to start a business, come up with a good plan. Everybody, you and me have been pitched to people. Hey, I got this great business idea. It's going to make money right out the gate. We're going to be rich. No, it just never happens. You need a 1, 3, 5 year realistic outlook plan of what it could potentially look like because there's no guarantees, right? again, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, set the date that you're going to leave your job. Don't deviate from it. Otherwise, you're never going to get there. And be ready to spend money up front. I mean, that, you might think that this is going to make a lot of money up front in whatever business, but you need to be prepared for a year or two where it's like, okay, maybe we'll break even,
Yep.
And as you probably consult with a lot of people that go that route.
Yeah. So one of the sayings that I always tell people, ideas are shit, execution is everything.
Yeah.
And what that actually means is, man, I excuse my French, but I shit out good ideas every day, right? They're not worth anything, right? An idea is not worth anything unless you implement.
I created a business plan yesterday for a clinic that I know will do well. It's just an idea, right? Throw it to some guys. We'll see if it sticks.
Yeah, but it's the execution part. You can have a terrible idea, but if you execute it flawlessly, it can be a success.
Look at the pet rock guy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right. Like that's a perfect example. Right. So I used to have friends who used to come to me, Jake, I got this great idea. I want to pitch you. I said, cool. What are you going to do with it? Well, that's what I need you for. I said, dude, I don't have time. I'm already busy enough. Right. Look, guys, just like a name, just like whatever, a website, whatever, it's you can have things that are catchy and all that kind of stuff, but it's actually what you do behind the scenes. It's the execution is what actually matters. That will always be the determining factor on someone's success is the execution side of it. Let me ask you this. If you could go back and change one thing about your journey, would you, and what would that be?
I would have started way sooner. And this is absolutely true. I have had over my career, which post-Army goes back to 2005, where I've had some good bosses, some people I really connected with. But I freaking hated bosses. I just, when I tell people about, okay, what is it like being an entrepreneur? It's not necessarily what you have to do. It's the first couple of months after you leave that W-2, the crap you don't have to do. I don't have to wake up and get on a Zoom call at 7 a.m. for somebody in a different time zone, talk about crap that I don't give a shit about, or work for somebody where they don't have a vested interest in my personal life, that is the biggest change. If I'd have done it 10 years prior, would I be successful? I don't know, it just, but I think internally I would have done it sooner. It's like, oh, I wish old people, I wish I would have traveled to Japan or seen the Great Wall. It's like, man, it's too late. You should have done it sooner.
For me, it would be I had to learn to quit listening to people who hadn't been there on that journey.
Very true. Yeah.
Because those are some of your biggest critics, and those are the people you should never be listening to. Early on, I was all about thinking, I want more time, a greater work-life balance. That's not true with entrepreneurship. Not successful entrepreneurship. You have to have obsession, right?
You have to grind like it's day one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is once you even reach a certain comfort level, it's easy to kind of take a back seat, right? Because you've made a certain amount of income.
Complacency.
You get complacent, right? Yeah. And we've all done it at some point. I know I have as well. I'm just as guilty. But you're not going to get to that next level. And you have to, for me, one of the things that was key was I wanted to make sure, it was always about the end result, right? I was looking for when I get on top of the mountain. And what I had to learn to embrace was the journey was the most important. Because when we're retired or we're at the tail end of our lives, you're not going to look at like the house that you have. That's not going to matter. The cars, the vacations you took. Well, maybe some of the vacations if you develop memories, but you understand what I'm saying. It's not the wealth necessarily or the assets that you've accumulated. All that's nice, but it's the journey and the people that you embark on and the relationships and the life experiences. That's what's going to matter. The struggles that you push through, that you go, man, I didn't think I was going to be able to push through that. You get through that, and later on you sit back and you laugh at it and go, man, I made a bigger deal of it than what I probably needed to, right?
I would just like, thank God that's over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you learn from that, right? And you're always going to remember those things. And so I always say, remember the journey because the journey is what matters, Let me ask you this. How important is networking and mentorship in the entrepreneurial world?
We talked about this, man. It is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
If you want to get into entrepreneurship, get started quickly. If you're in your W-2, join mastermind groups, join business groups, get to know people who are already there, and that can help guide you along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Find you a mentor, right? If you're starting out, find someone that, doesn't have to be me, doesn't have to be Darren. Certainly love to help anyone. But find someone that you resonate with, right? Find someone that has what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to be and has the same vision, and surround yourself with those type of individuals. You are the 5 people you hang out with the most, so you better choose those people wisely. And, if you're hanging around people that are always at the bars, always going out to the nightclubs, people that are just wasting time, those aren't the individuals going to help propel you to the next level.
And understanding that there are kind of spur of the moment opportunities that pop up. Jose Canseco is going to show up on this board. We ran into him at an airport lounge last year at a long layover.
Nice.
My wife didn't know who he was. I did,
of course.
And I didn't necessarily know him from his baseball days, but I'd seen an MMA fight where he fought Hong Man Choi.
I remember that.
Guy who's 7'7" or whatever it was. And I said, hey, go talk to him, because it was like, it'd be easier for her to go do it.
Yeah.
And she's so outgoing, like I said, and she got into a 20-minute conversation with him. I'm like, came over, asked him, because he's had significant highs and lows in his career.
Yes, he has.
And he was, in that particular case, he was heading to Myrtle Beach to be inducted in some Hall of Fame. I can't remember what it was.
Sure.
And then we talked about perseverance and taking those opportunities. So when you're in mentorship or you're meeting people that are entrepreneurs, ask them who they know. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Who do you know that can help me out? Because I'm going to offer you this, but who do you know that can be on the referral side?
Absolutely. What would you say your vision for the future of your business is, and how do you plan on to achieving that?
Yeah. So I want to stay at a recruiting consultancy level, which is, if I walked in here as a cold caller or just got introduced to you, and I brought a 10-man team with the director of sales and all that, and we showed you photos of our office building and all that, in my mind, and probably your mind, being a finance guy, like, man, you must be spending a lot of money on that stuff. So what are you going to try to get out of me? We keep it lean. We keep it very personable, which I really like. So it's not churn and burn, as we call it.
Yep.
And then, understanding the industries that we're in and what we can get into. Vader Ray engineering is a great part of that. Coming from engineering kind of resource background, we have a major EPC client, project management client, that gave us a recruiting contract, but they said, you've been in the biz a while. Your wife's in the biz. What do you think about providing contractors to help our clients out? In other words, 1099 guys that would be Vader Ray engineering employees that would be farmed out to their client sites. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And they're like, okay, here's a contract to go do that. And that's where Vader Ray engineering has come from. It's taking the assets you have and knowing how you can deploy those to build your business.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Are there any new trends or opportunities in your industry that excite you?
AI is everything. I got into AI last year, late to the game. I think anybody who waited until the true betas for ChatGPT and all that came out, man, we use it for AI and automation are reshaping recruiting. They're reshaping some engineering jobs. They're reshaping everything. We leverage these tools to maximize efficiency. We do it. For example, we have the agreed job description. Okay, what do these candidates look like on paper? How are they rated on what we see on paper versus what the hard targets are for the job description? Okay, they're rated this much. These people we're definitely talking to. These people are maybe, and then some folks just don't have. People go on LinkedIn all the time. This is true. Easy apply button. Oh man, I hate that button on LinkedIn because. We'll take project management. If I have a construction capital projects management, or it's somebody that has to have an engineering degree, they have to build substations or tanks or something. IT project managers just have that. They see a project manager. This pays this much. Easy apply, and it's like, why? You didn't even look at it. Yeah. So why would we have a vested interest in you when you don't have a vested interest in yourself? You know? And using AI to help us get efficient, as well as build the business, has been crucial.
AI is that I can't argue that. I'm 100% in agreement. What I tell everyone all the time is it's here and it's coming fast. And it's going to continue to shape all these different businesses. You know, even from the accounting or financial side of things, I don't know how it will shape our industry in the next 5 years, to be honest with you. Yeah. But I will say this, for anyone who's scared, you need to invest in AI as much as possible. You know, I had a good friend of mine the other day, he was asking me how often I'm on AI. And I said, man, I'm on Chat GPT, every single day, or Grok for X platform. Every single day. He goes, really? Yeah, really. Automating our systems.
Learn how to prompt. Learn how to understand that what you're talking to can be your biggest advisor of all time.
Yep, absolutely. So embrace it. It's not going anywhere. If you're worried about it taking your job away, look, it's going to do whatever it's going to do. You can't change that makeup. I think that in 5 years, we're all going to be working differently. But the one thing that doesn't scare me so much, because you remember years ago when the internet came out and everybody goes, oh man, everything's going to be on the internet.
I'm not that old, man. I am 50.
and so I would say this, that personal touch is never going to go away. People still like to communicate and talk to human beings. And no matter how advanced these computers get, I don't think for most people, I don't think that you're going to ever be able to take that human element out of it. I know they're talking about the robots and all that, but at the same time, it's still not a human being.
It's not a human being. And my kind of final thought on AI, if you're not engaging with it, do it now while it's still free.
That's right. That's right.
You know, get used to it.
That's right. That's right. And that way you grow with it. Darren, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. You've been very insightful. It was an absolute honor to have you on today. And hopefully you as a listener out there, you were able to gain some insight here from Darren and myself. And, click that like button, follow if you like what you hear today. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, Darren.
Hey, thank you. It's been a pleasure, Jake.